Hello. Thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Mary, and this event occurred in April 1998. Open quote. My grandmother was admitted to the hospital the weekend of my son's 5th birthday. I was concerned, but she was tough and had been hospitalized before. On a few occasions, my family was told she wouldn't recover, but to the doctor's amazement, she would get better and come home. I had also been scheduled for surgery in a few days. I have to say I was a little hesitant to keep my surgery scheduled, but the whole family encouraged me to have it. I do not remember what time of day any of this occurred, but I can dig out the medical records if need be. The day of my surgery, I went to visit my grandmother, and about an hour before my admission time, she did not look good. She had labored breathing. She couldn't talk, but tried to squeeze my hand, so I'm sure she heard me. I did tell her that I had to have surgery so my spirit would not be far from her, and I would come to visit her after I was released from the hospital in a couple days. When I left her, I felt sad, but still felt that she would pull out of this. Again, she had come back from numerous close calls. Directly after my visit, I admitted myself into the hospital. The surgery was quite a few hours away yet. They had to run antibiotics directly into my bloodstream before the surgery. I believe it was two 40 milliliter bags. At least an hour had to elapse before the surgery to make sure all the antibiotics were working full force. At this point, I was anxious about my surgery and worried about my grandma, so time seemed to slow down. Eventually, I was rolled in for my operation. I do remember the operating room, then that was it until I heard a voice. I heard my grandmother's voice, and within a few seconds, I saw her standing next to me. I was sitting on the edge of a bed. Here, you should understand that my grandmother had an amputated leg. During our meeting, the first thing that struck me was she had both legs. Then I noticed her hair was thicker and blacker than it had been in those last 5 or 6 years. If I had to guess, I would now say she looked like she was in her 40s or possibly 50s. She proceeded to tell me that she was great, but her body was dead. She also stressed to me that she had limited time with me, so listen up. She stated to me that an all knowing part of her soul entered her when her spirit passed out of the body. And to help me with grieving, she was going to give me as much information as she felt I could understand in as much time as she was allowed. I do not remember it all, and out of fear, it took me years to talk about it. So here is what she told me. She likened the soul to a puzzle cube. I believe she meant a Rubik cube. The cube was the whole soul. Each side was a section of our soul. Each space was a learning experience required for each section of the soul. As she explained it, each section of the soul touched a different dimension and would continue returning to that dimension until all the spaces of learning were completed. Then that dimensional level would not repeat and your soul would work on the next section. I know it is confusing. I do not still understand it all. She also said that only a portion of your complete spirit was housed in the human body with each reincarnation. It was directly connected to your core soul. When your human portion of the soul would learn, it would directly impact the core soul. She also alluded to the fact that a human body could sometimes hold more than human portions of a soul connected to a different core soul. This was more common when the earth was less populated. Each soul yearns to learn and complete its lessons, so human vessels would be shared. Once the puzzle of the soul was completed, your whole spirit would remain intact with all the knowledge it collected. It would not have to return to a vessel and would live in the presence of God forever. It is so much information, I can't remember all she said at this time. But I will say she alluded to the fact that there were other vessels of learning for our soul other than those here on earth. The other striking comment was that she was in contact with my core soul, and I would from time to time feel her presence because our learning portion of our soul is connected to the core soul. It is complicated, I know. So I will leave it here with her words of enlightenment. I can say she was a staunch Catholic, so some of her explanations surprised me. At the end of the encounter, she hugged me and cackled. She said her goodbye for now and stated she was excited to return to her core soul. That, although she wasn't a completed soul yet, the time in heaven where the core soul resided is amazing. It felt like seconds, and I was waking up to see my sister sitting next to my bed. I could see she was upset, and before she told me about my grandmother's death, I told her I already knew Grandma had died. I had tried to push some of this to the back of my mind, trying to rationalize it as a dream, until years later I heard a program on the radio. It talked about physicists mathematically proving 11 or 12 dimensions, and her words flooded back. And to this day, I only told a select few friends and family members about her visit. I'm not a scientist, and at the time knew very little about physics. I know more now, but it is still a rudimentary knowledge. I believe she contacted me. I believe what she said, even if I don't understand it all. End quote. There's some questions. How was your vision? Answer. Was younger, stronger, wearing clothes similar in style to what she wore here. She did glow in a certain way, but it is hard to explain this. It was more of a glow within rather than without. It was more a conveyance. Maybe she was talking about her grandmother there. And how about your hearing? I communicated much of her words above, and I'm sure, what about the hearing? I communicated much of her words above, and I'm sure I missed something. She sounded like she always did in life. Her voice was clear as two people chatting over morning coffee. What emotions did you feel during the experience? Answer, mixed. She was elated to be going back. She was worried about my emotional state, confident that I would be okay, sad that the human condition had to endure such sorrow through grief, but also glad about the process. What was your religion prior to your experience? At the time I was Lutheran, I still am, but I am not a practicing churchgoer. I had limited exposure to alternate forms of belief. In your religion now? Answer, I am still a current Lutheran/Christian. I do, however, have a much more open view of the soul and spirit. Have you changed, been a change in your values and beliefs because of your experience? Answer, yes. I've opened my mind up to more than just the book of the Bible to explain our existence. Question, during your experience, did you gain special knowledge or information about your purpose? Answer, yes. Answer is yes. Growth in our lives has very little to do with our bank account balance. Our material belongings do not go with us. Growth in the spirit is what matters. When we complete our learning process, we leave Earth for another adventure. Question. What did you believe about the reality of your experience shortly after it happened? Answer. Experience was probably real. I don't know how I would come up with these visions inside my head. It isn't something I had thought about before, but a small part of me is still reserved. I was under anesthesia at the time. End quote. What an amazing story, adventure, and kind of filling in the spirit, your soul, we've had a couple of other stories that we've read where it talked about how a person was two different people or three different people and the one me, and then talked about that me, that part staying in heaven. So a part of your soul is still in heaven while you're on earth? I don't know. According to this, it could kind of be that way as well. And you're coming back trying to do things. Reincarnation, people. Here's another story involving that as well. Amazing. Thank you for listening.